The chilling October winds sliced through my thin jacket as I stood before the looming, decrepit Crestwood High School. It had been abandoned for decades, a relic of a bygone era, left to decay in silence. The legend of Crestwood was a familiar one among the kids in our town. It was haunted, they said, not just by any ghosts, but by malevolent spirits seeking revenge. My name is Mike, and on that fateful night, my life took an unimaginable turn. My friends and I had gathered at Mark's house for a night of harmless thrills, pizza, and video games. But as the night wore on, someone suggested a dare that would change everything. It was Dylan, always the daring one, who first spoke up. "Hey guys, you ever think about going into Crestwood at night? You know, to see if the legends are true?" We all exchanged nervous glances, fully aware of the tales that had circulated around the school. Crestwood High had been abandoned abruptly after a mysterious incident involving a student, a teacher, and a deadly curse. While most dismissed it as a macabre urban legend, nobody dared to venture inside after sunset. "Come on, Dylan, don't be ridiculous," I protested. But deep down, a gnawing curiosity began to grow within me. Mark chuckled. "You're just scared, Mike. Admit it." I clenched my jaw, determined not to show weakness. "Fine. If you're so brave, why don't you go in there tonight?" Mark hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Deal. We'll all go." As the evening moon hung low in the sky, casting long, eerie shadows across the empty schoolyard, the six of us found ourselves standing before the rusted gates of Crestwood High School. Our flashlights quivered in trembling hands, our breath visible in the cold air. The entrance to the school was unnerving in itself. Broken windows stared like hollow eyes, and graffiti-covered walls whispered tales of the restless spirits that allegedly roamed the corridors. Reluctantly, we pushed through the broken doors, the creaking hinges echoing in the darkness. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and dampness. The moon's faint glow trickled through shattered windows, revealing a decaying maze of lockers, overturned desks, and forgotten textbooks. My heart pounded in my chest. Each step I took an act of defiance against my own fear. As we explored further, the echoes of our footsteps grew more unsettling, as if the building itself was absorbing our presence. Suddenly, a gust of frigid wind swept through the hallway, extinguishing our flashlights and plunging us into absolute darkness. Panic gripped us as we fumbled to relight them. "We need to stick together," I urged, my voice barely above a whisper. Dylan's voice quivered. "I thought I saw something moving back there." We all turned, but there was nothing but darkness and silence. Dismissing it as nerves, we continued down the hallway. The sense of dread intensified as we reached the school's old gymnasium. The doors were slightly ajar, and a faint, unnatural glow emanated from within. Mark, ever the fearless leader, pushed the doors open slowly. What we saw in that gymnasium would haunt our nightmares for years to come. There, in the center of the room, an eerie, ghostly figure floated a few feet above the ground. Its ethereal form pulsed with a sickly, greenish light. Its eyes were hollow, void of any humanity, and it emitted a mournful wail that sent shivers down our spines. A cacophony of screams erupted as we bolted for the exit, the ghostly figure following us with malevolent intent. Panic fueled our flight, and in the chaos, we lost sight of one another. I found myself alone in a pitch-black hallway, my flashlight flickering ominously. Desperation drove me forward as I desperately searched for an escape. I stumbled into a classroom, slammed the door shut, and barricaded it with a desk. Trembling, I listened as the ghostly wail grew closer, echoing through the halls. Hours passed, although it felt like an eternity. The ghostly presence never left, its chilling cries serving as a constant reminder of the horror that awaited me on the other side of the door. In the inky darkness, I had no way of knowing if I was the last one left, if my friends had met a worse fate. When dawn finally broke, I dared to venture out. The gymnasium was empty, devoid of the terrifying apparition, but my friends were nowhere to be found. Crestwood High School stood in the cold light of day, silent and desolate once more. I had survived, but the price was immeasurable. The guilt weighed heavily on my shoulders, knowing that it was my dare that had led us into this nightmare. And as I left Crestwood High behind, its legend lived on, a warning to all who dared to trespass in the world of the supernatural. To this day, I can still hear the mournful wail of that vengeful spirit echoing in the deepest recesses of my mind, a haunting reminder of the night our curiosity led us to the brink of darkness. I never believed in ghosts, not until that night at Ridgeville High School. It was a place I'd walked countless times, where memories of laughter and friendships lingered. But when darkness fell upon those corridors, it unveiled a horror beyond imagination. My name is Ethan, and my high school friends dared me to explore Ridgeville at night, notorious for its spine-tingling legends. Our curiosity led us to break in after hours. Armed with flashlights and adrenaline, we pushed through the heavy entrance doors, the echoing thud a harbinger of the eerie hours ahead. The school felt different at night, alien, like an abandoned cathedral. Lockers stood like sentinels guarding forgotten secrets, and the echo of our whispers bounced off cold linoleum floors. The rhythmic hum of flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows that danced along the walls. As we ventured deeper, our path converged with the infamous Room 309, shrouded in stories of an unsolved tragedy. The door stood ajar, the room inviting us with an otherworldly chill. We hesitated but couldn't resist, drawn to it like moths to a flame. Inside, remnants of a history left untouched by time greeted us, desks, chairs, and a faded chalkboard. Yet it was the solitary desk in the corner that froze our hearts. It was as if time itself had stopped at that spot. My friend Jake, always the skeptic, whispered, "Guys, this place is just creepy. Let's go." But curiosity, my relentless companion, wouldn't let me leave. I approached the old desk cautiously, running my fingers over its dusty surface. Then, I felt it, the frigid grip of a hand on my shoulder. I spun around, but there was no one there. A nervous laughter escaped my lips as I shrugged it off as imagination. Jake, however, saw the terror in my eyes and moved to join me. Together we stared at the desk, waiting for something to happen. That's when it did. The room temperature plummeted, and a ghostly figure emerged from the shadows. It was the visage of a young boy, no older than 16. He wore a torn school uniform, and his eyes, hollow voids of despair, met mine. "Help me," he whispered, his voice a barely audible plea. In a cacophony of panic, we raced out of room 309, not daring to look back. Yet the haunting presence followed us, the whispering echoes of despair echoing through the hallways. We reached the entrance doors, our salvation, or so we thought, but they wouldn't budge. Desperation set in as we pounded on the heavy wooden doors, screaming for help. The shadows seemed to close in, mocking our terror. As I turned to face the darkness behind us, the ghostly boy materialized once more. He extended a skeletal hand toward us, his lips moving silently as if to speak. Then, the walls seemed to twist and warp, the ceiling descending upon us, and our screams were swallowed by an unfathomable darkness. My name is Daniel, and my life took a horrifying turn when I transferred to Hollowbrook High. It was supposed to be a fresh start, but it became a descent into darkness. Hollowbrook High had a sinister reputation. The stories spoke of unexplained disappearances, strange noises in the night, and a haunted history that stretched back for decades. I had scoffed at the tales, dismissing them as mere urban legends, until I experienced the terror firsthand. It began innocently enough. On my first day, I met Sarah, a friendly girl who quickly became my closest friend. She had a fascination with the school's dark past and the mysteries it held. At her insistence, we began researching the school's history, digging through old yearbooks and archived articles. One name kept resurfacing: Eleanor Gray, a student from the 1950s who had vanished without a trace. Sarah was convinced that uncovering Eleanor's story would shed light on the mysteries of Hollowbrook High. But as we delved deeper into the archives, the darkness seemed to grow around us. One evening, after hours of poring over faded photographs and newspaper clippings, we heard it. A soft, mournful sob echoing from the empty hallways. We exchanged nervous glances, our heartbeats quickening. Sarah suggested we follow the sound, and against my better judgment, I agreed. The sobbing led us to a forgotten corridor, tucked away behind a disused janitor's closet. The air grew colder, and a suffocating sense of dread weighed upon us as we ventured further into the dimly lit corridor. There, in the flickering light of our flashlights, we saw her. A young girl with long dark hair and a tattered school uniform. It was Eleanor Gray, or at least her spectral form. She stared at us with hollow, despairing eyes, her ghostly presence sending chills down our spines. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a haunting echo. Fear gripped us, but we couldn't look away. Eleanor beckoned us closer, her translucent hand outstretched. With each step, the shadows deepened around us, and we felt a cold, invisible force pulling us closer to her. Suddenly, Sarah let out a blood-curdling scream as her hand passed through Eleanor's outstretched fingers. It was as if she had crossed some threshold, and her terror intensified. I reached out to grab her, but the spectral presence of Eleanor became a swirling vortex of darkness, enveloping us both. When the darkness receded, we were no longer in the hallway of Hollowbrook High. We were in a different place altogether, a nightmarish realm of swirling mist and anguished whispers. Eleanor stood before us, her eyes filled with sorrow. "This is where I've been trapped for eternity," she said. "Help me find the truth, and I can finally rest in peace." We had no choice but to accept Eleanor's plea. Together, we ventured deeper into the nightmarish realm, unraveling the dark secrets of Hollowbrook High and the horrors that had befallen it. To this day, I can still hear the whispers of that accursed place, a reminder of the haunting mysteries we uncovered and the price we paid for seeking the truth. Hollowbrook High's dark history had become our own, and we were forever bound to its malevolent legacy.